The conference room was silent except for the sound of rain hammering against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the 63rd floor. Yoon Seo-Jin stood at the head of the table, her black suit perfectly tailored, her expression carved from ice. Before her sat 12 men in expensive suits. Men she had once trusted, men she had made wealthy beyond measure. Chairman Park slid a single document across the polished mahogany table. The paper whispered against the wood like a death sentence. "Sign it," he said, his voice pleasant, almost fatherly. Seo-Jin's hands trembled as she picked up the document. Her eyes scanned the words that would dissolve her ownership of YoonTech Industries, the empire she had built from nothing, the company that bore her family name. "If you sign that paper," her voice cracked, something that never happened, "I die." Chairman Park smiled, leaning back in his leather chair. "Then die quietly, Miss Yoon. We've already made arrangements for your funeral. Something tasteful. Your mother would have approved." Her fiancé, Min-jae, sat 3 seats down. He wouldn't meet her eyes. The diamond engagement ring on her finger suddenly felt like a shackle. Seo-Jin's hand moved. The pen touched paper. Her signature flowed across the bottom line, elegant and final. She stood, pushed back her chair, and walked toward the door. Her heels clicked against the marble floor. 12 steps to the exit. 12 steps away from everything she had ever built. On the 13th step, her vision blurred. On the 14th, her knees buckled. She collapsed before she reached the door, her body folding like paper, the sound of her fall echoing through the silent room. No one moved to help her. Hello, lovelies. Welcome to Afro-Korean Story Vault, the hub of great stories. If you want to know how a queen rises from the ashes, don't click away. Subscribe to this channel and stay until the end. This story will break your heart and put it back together. Let's begin. 3 days later, Seo-Jin woke up in a private hospital room that smelled of antiseptic and lilies. The flowers were from her board members, the same men who had just destroyed her life. The card read, "Wishing you a swift recovery." She ripped the IV from her arm and left the hospital in the clothes she'd collapsed in, her suit wrinkled, her makeup long faded. The headlines were already everywhere, scrolling across digital billboards throughout Seoul. YoonTech founder removed amid corruption allegations. Investigation underway. Her phone had 847 missed calls. She threw it in a trash can and kept walking. For 3 days, she moved through Seoul like a ghost, using cash she'd hidden in a safety deposit box years ago. Emergency money her mother had taught her to keep. "Trust no one," her mother had whispered on her deathbed. "Not even yourself." She should have listened. On the 4th day, her former assistant, a quiet woman named Ji-yeon, found her in a cheap motel near the airport. Ji-yeon's eyes were red from crying. "They didn't just ruin you," Ji-yeon whispered, glancing over her shoulder at the door. "They want you dead. There's a contract. I overheard Chairman Park on the phone. You have maybe 48 hours. Seo-Jin felt nothing. She had cried herself empty already. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you gave my daughter a scholarship when no one else would. Because you're not the monster they're making you out to be." Ji-yeon pressed an envelope into Seo-Jin's hands. "There's a passport, cash, and a ticket. The flight leaves in 3 hours. Don't tell me where you're going. Just disappear." That night, as Seo-Jin walked to her car in the motel parking lot, headlights suddenly blazed to life. An engine roared. She dove between 2 parked vehicles as a black sedan smashed into the space where she'd been standing seconds before. The car reversed, its tires screaming, preparing for another attempt. Seo-Jin ran. She ran until her lungs burned, until her expensive heels broke, until she couldn't hear the engine anymore. She ran until she reached a crowded subway station and disappeared into the sea of people. 12 hours later, she was on a plane with a fake passport that said her name was Grace Kim. She had no destination in mind when she bought the ticket. The woman at the counter had suggested Nairobi. It's beautiful this time of year, and far from everything. Far from everything sounded perfect. The heat hit Seo-Jin like a physical force when she stepped off the plane in Kenya. She had never experienced anything like it. Thick, oppressive, alive. She took a bus, then another bus, then a matatu crammed with people and chickens, heading away from the city, away from cameras and recognition, away from the woman she used to be. She got off in a small village whose name she never learned. The landscape was red dust and acacia trees, small houses with corrugated metal roofs, children playing barefoot in the dirt. She walked until she couldn't walk anymore, until exhaustion and 3 sleepless nights finally caught up with her. The last thing she saw before darkness claimed her was a man's face, weathered and concerned, as he knelt beside her collapsed form in the middle of a dirt road. "Pole sana," he said in Swahili. "Sorry." She tried to tell him she didn't understand, but the words wouldn't come. Seo-Jin woke to the sound of chickens and the smell of wood smoke. She was lying on a thin mattress in a small room with mud walls and a single window covered by a faded curtain. Her designer clothes were gone, replaced by a simple cotton dress that wasn't hers. Panic seized her. She tried to sit up, but her body screamed in protest. How long had she been unconscious? Where was her bag? Her money? The door opened and a man entered carrying a cup of water. He was tall, with dark skin, strong hands, and eyes that had seen too much sadness. He moved with the quiet confidence of someone who had nothing left to prove to anyone. "You're awake," he said in accented but clear English. "You've been sleeping for 2 days. I'm Kamau." "My bag." Seo-Jin's voice was hoarse. "Safe. I didn't touch anything except to make sure you weren't carrying weapons or drugs." He set the water beside her. "You should drink. The sun here is different from what you're used to." She studied him carefully. He didn't seem threatening, but she had been wrong about people before. Catastrophically wrong. "Why did you help me?" Kamau was quiet for a moment. "Because someone should." Over the next 3 days, Seo-Jin learned that Kamau lived alone in a small farm with his niece Grace, a shy 8-year-old with curious eyes. He grew maize and vegetables, raised chickens, and did odd jobs for other villagers. He asked her no questions, demanded no explanations. He simply gave her space to heal. But Seo-Jin noticed things. She noticed the way Kamau moved, too precise, too aware of his surroundings. She noticed the scars on his forearms, the kind you got from fighting, not farming. She noticed how he positioned himself between her and the door whenever someone visited, and how his eyes constantly scanned the road. On the 4th evening, as she sat outside watching the sunset paint the sky impossible shades of orange and purple, Kamau brought her a plate of ugali and sukuma wiki. "You have military scars," she said quietly. It wasn't a question. Kamau sat down beside her, not too close. "I was security. A long time ago. International jobs. I quit." "Why?" "Because I failed to protect the person who mattered most." His voice was hollow. "My wife. Bandits came to the farm 3 years ago. I was away working. By the time I got back..." He didn't finish. Seo-Jin felt something crack inside her chest. "I'm sorry." "Why did you run?" Kamau asked, his eyes on the horizon. "You don't dress like a refugee. You don't move like someone used to hardship. The jewelry in your bag could feed this village. For a year." She should have lied. Instead, the truth came pouring out. How she had built an empire. How she had been betrayed. How someone wanted her dead. She told him about the corruption she'd discovered, The arms trafficking her own company had been used for without her knowledge. How she'd threatened to expose everyone involved. My fiancé signed the order. She finished, her voice barely a whisper. The man I was going to marry wanted me killed. Kamau was quiet for a long time. You can stay here, he finally said. As long as you need. They'll find me eventually. They always find people like me. Then we'll deal with it when they do. That night, Seo-Jin cried for the first time since leaving Seoul. She cried for her company, for her mother, for the naive girl who had believed that success and money could protect you from the cruelty of the world. Kamau heard her through the thin walls but didn't intrude. He simply sat outside her door until dawn, keeping watch. Weeks passed. Seo-Jin slowly adapted to village life, though it was harder than any business negotiation she'd ever conducted. She burned food, spilled water she'd spent an hour fetching from the well, and accidentally let the chickens escape twice. The village women watched her attempts at domestic life with barely concealed amusement. But Kamau never laughed at her. He taught her with patient hands how to start a fire, how to grind maize, how to move through the world with less and find it was somehow more. Little Grace became her shadow, teaching her Swahili words and giggling when Seo-Jin's pronunciation was terrible. You say asante like you're angry, Grace told her one afternoon. I say everything like I'm angry, Seo-Jin replied. It's a personality flaw. Uncle Kamau says you're just sad. He says sad people sometimes forget how to be soft. The words struck Seo-Jin like a physical blow. When had she last been soft? When had she last allowed herself to be vulnerable? To be anything other than the ice queen the business magazines love to write about? One evening, she found Kamau sitting by the fire, staring at a photograph. It showed a beautiful woman with kind eyes, holding a baby. Your wife? Seo-Jin asked softly. Kamau nodded. Ruth, and our daughter. She was 6 months old when they died. Seo-Jin sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. What was she like? Stubborn, smart. She saw through every lie I ever tried to tell. A sad smile crossed his face. She would have liked you. She always said I needed someone who could argue back. I'm good at arguing. I've noticed. They sat in comfortable silence as the fire crackled. Seo-Jin realized, with a start, that she felt safe. Something she hadn't felt in years, maybe ever. In Seoul, she had bodyguards, security systems, layers of protection. Yet she had never felt truly safe. Here, in a mud house in rural Kenya with a widowed farmer, she finally did. That night, something shifted between them. Nothing was said. Nothing happened. But they both felt it. A recognition, a possibility, a dangerous warmth neither of them was ready to name. The black SUV appeared on a Tuesday morning, kicking up red dust as it rolled slowly through the village. Seo-Jin saw it from the garden where she was weeding vegetables. Her blood turned to ice. She dropped her hoe and ran inside. Kamau, we have visitors. He emerged from the back room, his entire demeanor changed. The gentle farmer was gone, replaced by someone harder, more dangerous. Stay inside with Grace. Lock the door. They're here for me. I know. Stay inside anyway. But Seo-Jin watched through the window as 2 Korean men in expensive clothes stepped out of the vehicle. They spoke to some villagers, showing a photograph. Her photograph. Her heart hammered against her ribs. The men got back in the SUV and drove on, but Seo-Jin knew they'd be back. Hunters always circled back. That evening, Kamau found her packing her few belongings with shaking hands. Where will you go? He asked. Anywhere but here. I won't bring death to your door again. Again? His voice was sharp. She looked up, tears streaming down her face. Your wife? You said you failed to protect her because you were away working. I won't be the reason you lose someone else. I won't let Grace grow up alone because of me. Kamau crossed the room in 3 strides and caught her hands. Listen to me. What happened to Ruth wasn't your fault or anyone's but the men who killed her. And I'm not letting you run again because that's not running. That's just a slower way to die. Then what do I do? Her voice broke. I had everything, Kamau. Power, money, respect. And I had no one. No one who actually cared if I lived or died. But here, these past weeks, I felt more alive than I ever did in my penthouse. Then stay alive. Stay here. We'll figure it out together. How? They'll keep coming. Kamau was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he said something that shocked them both. Marry me. Seo-Jin stared at him. What? Marry me. A legal marriage. It gives you residency rights, makes you harder to extradite, puts you under the protection of local law. It buys us time. That's insane. You have a better idea? She didn't. And as she looked into Kamau's steady eyes, she realized something terrifying. She didn't want to leave. Not the village, not Grace, and especially not him. It would be fake, she said carefully. A business arrangement. Of course, Kamau agreed, but something flickered in his eyes that made her pulse quicken. I'll need papers, documentation. I know people who can help with that. Seo-Jin laughed, slightly hysterical. I'm going from a Korean billionaire to a Kenyan farmer's wife. The board would die if they could see me now. The board can go to hell, Kamau said with surprising venom. Will you marry me or not, Yoon Seo-Jin? It was the first time he'd used her real name in weeks. Hearing it from his lips made something twist in her chest. Yes, she whispered. I'll marry you. The village erupted in excitement when news of the wedding spread. The old women clucked their approval, declaring that Kamau had been alone too long and needed a strong woman. The fact that his bride-to-be was a hopeless cook who couldn't fetch water without spilling half of it only made them more determined to help. Seo-Jin found herself swept into preparations she barely understood. Fabric being wrapped around her, women singing in languages she didn't speak, food being prepared for a feast she hadn't anticipated. It was chaotic, warm, overwhelming, and completely foreign to the sterile, controlled world she'd come from. Grace was beside herself with joy. I get a aunt, she kept repeating, dancing around the house. The word is aunt, Seo-Jin corrected gently. That's what I said. Aunt. 2 days before the wedding, Kamau took Seo-Jin to meet the village elder who would officiate the ceremony. The old man studied her with eyes that seemed to see through skin and bone. You carry great sadness, he said in Swahili, which Kamau translated, and great anger. Marriage will not fix these things. I know, Seo-Jin replied, but maybe it will give me space to heal them. The elder nodded slowly. Then you understand. Good. Too many people marry to escape themselves. That never works. As they walked back to the farm, Kamau said quietly, You can still change your mind. No one would blame you. Would you blame me? He was quiet for a long moment. No, but I'd miss you. It was the most honest thing anyone had said to her in years. The wedding took place under an acacia tree on a Saturday afternoon. Seo-Jin wore a borrowed dress in vibrant colors, her hair wrapped in a traditional headscarf. She wore no makeup, no jewelry except the simple ring Kamau had purchased from a local craftsman. She looked nothing like the polished CEO who had once graced magazine covers. She looked like herself. As Kamau took her hands under the tree, surrounded by villagers who had known him for years and her for weeks, Seo-Jin felt something shift inside her chest. This was supposed to be fake. a legal arrangement. Protection. But as Kamau spoke his vows in both English and Swahili, his voice steady, and his eyes locked on hers, it didn't feel fake. It felt like the most real thing she'd ever done. "I promise to protect you," he said, "to stand beside you against whatever comes, to give you space to heal, and time to decide who you want to be next." When it was her turn, Seo-Jin's voice trembled. "I promise to stop running, to trust you when trust is the hardest thing I've ever done, to be worthy of the safety you've given me." She hadn't planned those words. They simply emerged, true and terrifying. The elder pronounced them married, and the village erupted in celebration. There was music, dancing, food spread on tables under the trees. Children ran laughing through the crowd. Grace appointed herself the official flower girl, throwing petals she'd collected with serious concentration. That night, as the party wound down and stars filled the African sky like scattered diamonds, Kamau and Seo-Jin sat outside their home now, legally, watching the fire burn low. "This wasn't what I expected when I picked up a collapsed stranger on the road," Kamau said softly. "This wasn't what I expected when I ran away from everything I knew." "Regrets?" Seo-Jin considered the question seriously. 6 weeks ago, she would have said losing her company was the worst thing that could happen. Now, sitting beside a man who had given her kindness when she deserved nothing, married in a ceremony that was supposed to be fake but felt achingly real, she found her answer. "No, no regrets." Kamau turned to look at her, and something passed between them. A recognition, a possibility, a bridge being built between two broken people. He reached for her hand. She let him take it. Neither of them noticed the flash of a camera from the bushes beyond the firelight, or the figure that melted back into the darkness, carrying photographs that would change everything. For 3 weeks, Seo-Jin allowed herself to pretend. She woke up in Kamau's house, helped with the farm, taught Grace basic math, and slowly learned to be someone other than the ruthless CEO she'd been. She and Kamau maintained careful distance. They slept in separate rooms, rarely touched, kept up the pretense that this was just a legal arrangement. But the pretense was getting harder to maintain. She noticed the way Kamau watched her when he thought she wasn't looking. She noticed how his hand would hover near her back when she climbed the ladder to the storage loft, ready to catch her if she fell. She noticed how he smiled, really smiled, not the polite version but the real one, when she finally managed to cook ugali without burning it. And she noticed her own heart, how it jumped when he entered a room, how safe she felt sleeping in a house with walls so thin she could hear him breathing in the next room, how desperately she wanted to stop pretending this marriage was fake. Grace noticed too. Children always did. "Uncle Kamau looks at you the way he used to look at the photograph," she told Seo-Jin one afternoon while they folded laundry. "What do you mean?" "Like you're precious, like you might disappear." Seo-Jin's hands stilled on the shirt she was folding. "Grace, this marriage, it's complicated." Mama Ruth used to say that complicated was just another word for scared. Grace shrugged with the wisdom of children who see too clearly. "Are you scared, Aunt Seo-Jin?" "Terrified," Seo-Jin admitted. "Of what?" "Of wanting something I don't deserve." Grace frowned. "That's silly. Everybody deserves to be happy. If only it were that simple." The attack came on a Thursday night, swift and brutal. Seo-Jin woke to the sound of breaking glass. Years of corporate warfare had honed her instincts. She was out of bed and moving before her brain fully processed the danger. She ran to Grace's room, scooping up the sleeping child. Kamau appeared in the hallway, and Seo-Jin barely recognized him. The gentle farmer was gone. In his place stood someone who moved like violence incarnate, someone who had clearly done this before. "Back room," he ordered. "Now." "Kamau. Now." She ran with Grace clutching her neck, the child finally waking to the sounds of chaos. Seo-Jin barricaded them in the small storage room, holding Grace tight and whispering reassurances she didn't believe. Through the thin walls, she heard everything. Shouting in Korean, furniture breaking, gunshots that made her flinch and Grace whimper. Then silence. Terrible, suffocating silence. "Stay here," Seo-Jin whispered, but Grace's grip tightened. "Don't leave me. I have to check on your uncle. Stay quiet. Stay hidden. Can you do that for me?" Grace nodded, tears streaming down her face. Seo-Jin crept out of the storage room, her heart hammering. The main room was destroyed, furniture overturned, bullet holes in the walls. 3 men lay unconscious or worse on the floor. And Kamau stood in the center of it all, blood on his hands and face, chest heaving. Their eyes met. "Who are you?" Seo-Jin whispered. Kamau looked down at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. "Someone I tried to stop being. You're not just a farmer." "No." His voice was hollow. "I worked security for international agencies. Witness protection, high-risk extractions, cases where the law couldn't reach. I was good at it. Too good. It cost me my wife." "How?" "She wanted me to quit. Said the violence would follow me home. I didn't listen. I took one more job." He closed his eyes. "When I came back, they'd already killed her. Revenge for a job I'd done 6 months earlier. They killed her and Grace's parents because they couldn't get to me." Seo-Jin felt like the ground had opened beneath her feet. "So when you saved me, I saw a chance to actually protect someone for once. To not fail." He looked at her with raw pain in his eyes. "But I brought it to your door again. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "These men aren't here because of you," Seo-Jin said, moving closer. "They're here because of me. Because I threatened powerful people and they want me silenced. Then we both brought danger here." Kamau's laugh was bitter. Some marriage this turned out to be. Seo-Jin reached for his hand, not caring about the blood. "Who were these men?" "Korean, professional. They asked for you by name. Both names. Someone told them where you are." The implications hit her like ice water. Someone had found her, tracked her, sent killers halfway around the world. The photographs from the wedding, they must have been sent back to Seoul. Her location was compromised. "They'll send more," she said quietly. "I know. We can't stay here. Grace isn't safe. I know that too." Seo-Jin looked around at the destroyed home, at the man who had killed to protect her, at the reality she could no longer run from. A strange calm settled over her, the same calm she'd felt in boardrooms when making impossible decisions. "Then I'll go back," she said, "to Seoul. I'll face them." Kamau's head snapped up. "That's suicide. It's the only way to end this. If I keep running, they'll keep hunting. They'll hurt anyone close to me. Grace. You. I won't let that happen. You can't go back alone. I have to. This is my fight. It stopped being just your fight the moment I married you." Kamau's voice was fierce. "We end this together or not at all." They stared at each other across the destroyed room, 2 broken people who had accidentally built something worth protecting. Seo-Jin wanted to argue, to push him away, to do what she'd always done, face her battles alone. But Grace appeared in the doorway, small and scared, and Seo-Jin saw the future clearly. If she ran, Grace would grow up with more loss. If she kept hiding, more violence would find them. The only way forward was through. "Okay," she whispered. "Together." They spent the next 3 days planning. Kamau called in favors from his old life. People who specialized in making problems disappear, in moving through the world unseen, in fighting battles the law couldn't touch. It turned out the quiet farmer had connections that stretched across continents. You were more than just security, Seo-Jin realized as she watched him coordinate logistics with the precision of a military operation. I was whatever the job needed me to be. He looked at her. But I was never happy. Not until I stopped. And now? Does this feel like going back? Kamau was quiet for a moment. No. This feels like finishing something I should have finished years ago. Protecting what matters. Seo-Jin felt those words settle in her chest like a warm weight. On their last night in the village, as Grace slept and their bags were packed, Seo-Jin found Kamau outside, staring at the stars. I need to tell you something, she said, her heart hammering. He turned to face her, patient and steady as always. This marriage, it stopped being fake for me. I don't know when. Maybe the moment you found me on that road. Maybe during the wedding when you promised to protect me. Maybe tonight, watching you risk everything to keep Grace safe. Her voice shook. I'm in love with you, Kamau. And I need you to know that before we walk into whatever comes next. The silence stretched between them like an ocean. Then Kamau closed the distance and cupped her face in his scarred hands. Seo-Jin, I fell in love with you the day you tried to cook for the first time and nearly burned down my kitchen. I fell in love with your stubbornness, your refusal to give up, the way you read bedtime stories to Grace, even though your Swahili is terrible. He smiled, and it was the real smile, the one she loved. This marriage stopped being fake the moment I said my vows and meant every word. When he kissed her, it felt like coming home, like finding something she hadn't known she'd been searching for her entire life. They stood there under African stars, two broken people who had found each other in the ruins and decided to build something new. Promise me something, Seo-Jin whispered against his lips. Anything. Promise me that whatever happens in Seoul, we come back here, to Grace, to this life. Promise me we don't let them destroy what we've built. I promise, Kamau said, and sealed it with another kiss. Neither of them saw the message that lit up Seo-Jin's old phone, the one she'd thought was destroyed, but that someone had somehow reactivated. The message was simple, devastating. Come back to Seoul within 48 hours, or the farmer dies. We know where he lives. We know about the child. Choose. The message was accompanied by photos, Grace playing in the yard, Kamau working in the field, their wedding ceremony. The watchers had been there all along, documenting everything, building leverage. The phone buzzed again. Come alone. No police, no tricks, or everyone you love dies. Seo-Jin found the message in the morning. Her blood turned to ice, then to fire. She read it 3 times, her mind already calculating options, strategies, ways to protect the people she loved. Kamau found her sitting on the floor, staring at the phone. What is it? He asked, and she showed him. His jaw tightened. We stick to the plan. We go together. They said alone. They always say that. It's a trap either way. If I don't go, they'll kill you. They'll kill Grace. Her voice broke. I can't let that happen. And I can't let you walk into a death sentence. Kamau knelt beside her. Listen to me. These people, whoever they are, they're scared. You know something, have something they want destroyed. That means you have power. What power? They took everything. Not everything. They didn't take you. And you're the only one who knows the full truth about what they did, aren't you? You're the only one who can expose them. Seo-Jin's mind raced. He was right. Her crime hadn't been theft or fraud. It had been discovering that YoonTech's logistics division was being used to smuggle weapons into conflict zones. She'd found the evidence, confronted her board, threatened to go public. That's why they'd moved against her so quickly, so brutally. The evidence, she whispered. I hid copies. Before they destroyed me, I made backups of everything. Shipping manifests, communications, payments. I buried it so deep they'd never find it. Where? In the company's own servers, encrypted under my mother's maiden name. They've been looking in the wrong places. A fierce smile crossed her face. They want me back in Seoul? Fine, I'll go. But not to die quietly. I'll go to burn their house down. Kamau matched her smile. Now you sound like the woman who built an empire. They left Grace with trusted friends in a neighboring village. People Kamau swore would protect her with their lives. The goodbye was brutal. Grace clung to both of them, understanding more than they wished she did. You're coming back, right? She asked, looking between them. Always, Seo-Jin promised, fighting tears. We're family now. Families don't leave each other. Mama Ruth left. Papa left. Kamau knelt down, holding his niece's small face. I know, and I'm sorry I couldn't stop that. But I promise you, I promise, I will come back. We both will. The flight to Seoul took 18 hours. Seo-Jin spent it preparing, mentally running through the locations of her evidence, the people she could still trust. A very short list. The paths through YoonTech's security that she had designed herself and knew intimately. You're planning something dangerous, Kamau observed as they flew over the Indian Ocean. Very dangerous. Good. Dangerous means they won't see it coming. They landed at Incheon International Airport on a gray morning. Seo-Jin wore a wig and dark glasses, but she still felt exposed, like every camera was tracking her. Kamau stayed close, his presence steady and solid. She led them to a safe house she'd maintained, one of several that not even Ji-yeon had known about. It was a small apartment in Itaewon, paid for under a shell company, stocked with supplies for exactly this kind of emergency. You were always preparing to run, Kamau said, looking around at the sparse room with its emergency passports and cash. My mother taught me to always have an exit strategy. Seo-Jin opened a laptop and began typing rapidly. But she never taught me how to stand and fight. I'm learning that part on my own. For 3 days, they moved through Seoul like ghosts. Seo-Jin used old access codes and backdoors into YoonTech's systems. Codes that should have been changed, but, in typical corporate complacency, hadn't been. She found her hidden evidence exactly where she'd left it. Terabytes of damning information that would destroy not just her board, but the government officials who had enabled them. This is bigger than I thought, Kamau said, reading over her shoulder. This goes all the way to the Defense Ministry. I know. That's why they wanted me dead instead of just discredited. Seo-Jin's fingers flew across the keyboard. But it's also why this will work. They're too powerful to prosecute through normal channels, but they're not too powerful for the court of public opinion. You're going to leak it. Everywhere. Every news outlet. Every social media platform. Every international agency that investigates arms trafficking. I'm going to drown them in evidence they can't deny or suppress. She looked at him. But first, I need to make an appearance. They need to see me, to think they've won, to drop their guard. That's the dangerous part. Very dangerous. Kamau pulled her into his arms. Then let's be dangerous together. Seo-Jin called Chairman Park from a burner phone. His surprise was audible even through his attempt to sound casual. Miss Yoon, I'm glad you've come to your senses. I want to make a deal, she said, keeping her voice steady. I'll sign whatever you want, say whatever you need me to say. In exchange, you leave the farmer alone. You forget he exists. A pause. And why would I agree to that? Because if you don't, I'll detonate everything I have on you. Yes, Chairman, I have copies. Hidden somewhere you'll never find them. But if I walk away from this alive, if the people I care about are safe, the evidence disappears with me. Another pause. Longer this time. She could practically hear him calculating odds, considering options. Where do you want to meet? YoonTech headquarters. Tomorrow at noon. Just you and me. No security, no witnesses. We sign papers. I walk away. Everyone lives. You must think I'm stupid. I think you're smart enough to know that if anything happens to me, those documents go public automatically. I've set up a dead man's switch. You might kill me, Chairman, but you can't kill the truth. The lie came smoothly. She had no dead man's switch yet. But she would by tomorrow morning. Noon, Chairman Park agreed. Come alone. Of course, Seo-Jin said, and hung up. Kamau was watching her with concern. You're walking into a trap. I know. That's why you're not coming with me. Seo-Jin, listen to me. She gripped his hands. I need you to be my failsafe. If this goes wrong, if they do kill me, you're the one who triggers the release of everything. You're the one who makes sure they don't win. She pressed a USB drive into his palm. This has everything, the evidence, the automated release protocols, contacts at international news agencies. Promise me you'll use it. Promise me you'll survive so I don't have to. She kissed him, hard and desperate. I love you. I love you too. Which is why I'm not letting you do this alone. They argued for hours, but Kamau was as stubborn as she was. Finally, they reached a compromise. He would be nearby, close enough to help if needed, far enough to not trigger Chairman Park's paranoia. And Seo-Jin would wear a wire, broadcasting everything to the cloud in real time. If he confesses to anything, Kamau said, we'll have him on record. He won't confess. He's too smart. People who think they've won get careless. That night, their last night before walking into the lion's den, they didn't sleep. They held each other in the safe house, memorizing the feel of each other's heartbeats, the warmth of skin on skin, the shape of a future they might not survive to see. If I don't make it out, Seo-Jin whispered in the darkness, take care of Grace. Tell her I loved her. Tell her she made me remember how to be human. When you make it out, Kamau corrected firmly, you can tell her yourself. YoonTech headquarters looked exactly as Seo-Jin remembered. A gleaming tower of glass and steel, a monument to ambition and power. She had designed parts of this building, had her name etched in the cornerstone, had once believed this place was her legacy. Now it just looked like a very expensive tomb. She walked through the main lobby with her head high, wearing a simple black suit and the face of the woman who had once commanded this empire. Security guards recognized her, confusion flickering across their faces. She'd been declared dead in some reports, bankrupt and disgraced in others. Yet here she was, walking through their lobby like she owned it. Because she had owned it, once. The elevator to the 63rd floor felt like a journey through time. Every floor brought back memories. Deals signed, products launched, victories won. She'd been so proud, so certain of her power. She'd been blind. Chairman Park was waiting in the same conference room where this had all begun. He sat at the head of the table, looking older than she remembered, more tired. The other board members were notably absent. You came, he said, almost surprised. Did you think I wouldn't? I thought you were smarter than this. He gestured to a chair. Sit. Seo-Jin remained standing. I'll stand, thanks. You. This won't take long. No, it won't. Chairman Park opened a folder. I have documents here that will officially declare you mentally incompetent, transfer any remaining assets to the company, and commit you to a private psychiatric facility. You'll sign them, and then you'll disappear quietly. That's your plan? Lock me away and throw away the key? It's cleaner than the alternative. His eyes were cold. You were like a daughter to me, Seo-Jin. I helped build you after your mother died. But you had to go poking into things that didn't concern you. Arms trafficking concerned me. Using my company to smuggle weapons into war zones concerned me. Children dying from guns shipped in YoonTech containers concerned me. It was business. Profitable business. You would have understood that if you weren't so naive. I understood perfectly. That's why you're scared. Seo-Jin leaned forward. You're not here to make me sign papers. You're here to kill me and make it look like suicide. Corporate whistleblower, disgraced and depressed, throws herself from her old office window. Very tragic. Very convenient. Chairman Park's expression didn't change, which told her everything. The problem, Seo-Jin continued, is that I didn't come here to die. I came here to watch you fall. She pulled out her phone and pressed a button. Every screen in the conference room came to life. The monitors, the presentation screens, even the tablet built into the table. And on every screen, documents began scrolling. Shipping manifests, payment records, communications between Chairman Park and government officials, photographs of weapons crates being loaded onto YoonTech transport vehicles. Chairman Park's face went white. What have you done? I've sent this to every major news outlet in Korea, Japan, the US, and the EU. I've sent it to the International Criminal Court, to UN investigators, to every regulatory agency that might care about a Korean tech company smuggling weapons, to conflict zones. By now it's been downloaded thousands of times. You can't suppress it. You can't kill it. You can't prove I knew. Your signature is on half these documents, Chairman. Your personal email is in these communications. You signed off on shell companies used to hide the payments. Seo-Jin's smile was sharp as broken glass. I can prove everything. The door burst open. Min Jae, her former fiancé, rushed in with 2 security guards. His eyes went wide when he saw the screens. Shut it down, he shouted. Shut it all down. Too late, Seo-Jin said calmly. It's already out there. Every secret, every dirty deal, every death you profited from. The world knows now. Min Jae moved toward her with violence in his eyes, but Kamau appeared in the doorway like a shadow made solid. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The security guards took one look at him and decided they weren't paid enough for this. You destroyed us, Chairman Park whispered, staring at the scrolling documents. You destroyed everything. No, you destroyed everything the moment you chose profit over human lives. I'm just making sure everyone knows. Seo-Jin picked up her bag. Oh, and this entire conversation has been recorded and live-streamed to a secure server. You threatening me? Admitting the documents are real by trying to suppress them. All of it. She walked toward the door where Kamau waited. As she passed Min Jae, he grabbed her arm. You'll regret this, he hissed. Seo-Jin looked at his hand on her arm, then into his face. The face she'd once loved, once trusted. The only thing I regret is not seeing who you really were sooner. But I'm good at learning from my mistakes. She pulled free and walked out with Kamau at her side, leaving behind the wreckage of her former life and the men who had tried to bury her. The fallout was spectacular. Within hours, YoonTech's stock plummeted. By evening, Chairman Park and 3 other board members had been arrested. By the next morning, the defense minister had resigned and Min Jae was in custody. The story dominated every news cycle. The Korean billionaire who had faked her own death to expose corruption. The tech company used as a weapons pipeline. The government officials who had enabled it all. Seo-Jin watched it unfold from the safe house, Kamau beside her, as reporters camped outside YoonTech headquarters and politicians scrambled to distance themselves from the scandal. How do you feel? Kamau asked. Seo-Jin considered the question. Her company was destroyed, really destroyed this time, likely to be dissolved by the government. Her former colleagues were facing decades in prison. Her name would forever be associated with the biggest corporate scandal in Korean history. Free, she said finally. I feel free. Her phone rang. It was Ji-yeon. I saw the news, her former assistant said, crying. You did it. You actually did it. We did it. None of this would have been possible without your warning. What happens now? Now? Seo-Jin looked at Kamau, at the man who had saved her in more ways than one. Now I go home. They left Seoul the next day, slipping out before the media circus could track them down. Seo-Jin gave one statement through her lawyer. She would cooperate fully with investigators, but she would not be giving interviews or making public appearances. She had said everything she needed to say through the documents. The flight back to Kenya felt like exhaling after holding her breath for months. As the plane lifted, off, Seo-Jin watched Seoul disappear below. The city that had built her and broken her, the empire she'd lost twice now. Any regrets? Kamau asked, echoing their conversation from weeks ago. Seo-Jin threaded her fingers through his. Not a single one. Grace was waiting for them at the farm, having been brought back by Kamau's friends. She launched herself at both of them, crying and laughing at the same time. You came back. You promised and you came back. Always, Seo-Jin said, holding her tight. We're family. Family keeps promises. That night, as they sat around the fire, the three of them together, safe, alive, Seo-Jin felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not power, not success, not the hollow satisfaction of winning. Peace. What will you do now? Kamau asked. You're still brilliant. You could rebuild, start a new company. Seo-Jin looked around at the simple farm, at Grace falling asleep against her shoulder, at the man who had taught her that strength wasn't about control but about knowing when to let go. I think, she said slowly, I'll try being happy. I've never done that before. It takes practice, Kamau said with a smile. Then I'll need a good teacher. He kissed her softly, carefully, like she was something precious. I think I can help with that. 6 months later, a small envelope arrived from Seoul. Inside was a letter from the Korean government and a check, compensation for the illegal seizure of her assets, though it was a fraction of what she'd lost. Also included was a full pardon and an official apology. Seo-Jin used the money to buy the farm legally, to add running water and electricity, to start a small school in the village for children like Grace. She used her business knowledge differently now, helping local farmers improve their yields, connecting them to better markets, teaching financial literacy to women who had never been allowed to learn. She was no longer Yoon Seo-Jin, the Ice Queen CEO. She was Grace Kim, a name she'd once used to run away, now reclaimed as the person she chose to be. The woman who had learned that losing everything was sometimes the only way to find what mattered. Kamau watched her transformation with quiet pride, supporting her projects while maintaining the gentle, steady presence that had saved her life in more ways than pulling her from a dusty road. Some nights, Grace would ask Seo-Jin to tell her stories about Seoul, about the tall buildings and the busy streets. Seo-Jin would oblige, editing out the darker parts, focusing on the good memories, the first product launch, her mother's laugh, the view from the 63rd floor before everything fell apart. Do you miss it? Grace asked one night. Seo-Jin looked at Kamau reading by lamplight, at Grace's curious face, at the small home they'd built together from ruins and second chances. Sometimes, she admitted, I miss the person I thought I was, but I love the person I'm becoming. What's the difference? One was powerful. One is happy. Seo-Jin smiled. Happy is better. A year after the scandal, a documentary crew tracked them down, wanting to interview the whistleblower who had brought down an empire. Seo-Jin refused at first, but Kamau encouraged her. Your story might help someone else find the courage to speak up, he said. Isn't that worth something? So she agreed to one interview, filmed on the farm with her face partially obscured for privacy. She talked about corporate corruption, about the cost of silence, about how the system protected the powerful until someone was willing to burn it all down. But she also talked about redemption, about second chances, about learning that you could lose everything that society said mattered and still have a life worth living. The interviewer's last question was predictable. Do you consider yourself a hero? Seo-Jin thought about the question carefully. No. Heroes don't run away when things get hard. Heroes don't need to lose everything before they do the right thing. I'm just someone who made mistakes and got a chance to fix some of them. That doesn't make me a hero. It makes me human. After the crew left, Kamau found her in the garden, staring at the sunset. Second thoughts about the interview? No. But I was thinking about something you said once, about how losing everything saved my life. She turned to look at him. You were right. If none of this had happened, the betrayal, the fall, running to Kenya, I would have kept building an empire on rotten foundations. I would have been powerful and miserable until the day I died. And now? Now I'm happy and free. And I'm married to a man I love on a farm in Africa, raising a beautiful child and helping people in ways that actually matter. She laughed. My younger self would think I'd lost my mind. Have you? Probably. But it turns out losing your mind is sometimes the sanest thing you can do. Kamau pulled her close, and they watched the sun paint the sky, in colors that didn't exist in Seoul. Wild oranges, impossible purples, reds like hope on fire. No regrets? He asked one more time. Seo-Jin thought about everything she'd lost. Billions of dollars, a powerful position, the respect of the business world, the empire that bore her family name. Then she thought about everything she'd gained. Love, peace, purpose, a family, a life that was hers instead of one that owned her. Not a single one, she whispered. Not one. They grew old together on that farm in Kenya, Seo-Jin and Kamau. They watched Grace graduate from university, then return to the village to start her own school. They saw the village transform from a collection of struggling farms to a thriving community with sustainable agriculture and economic independence. Much of it due to the knowledge Seo-Jin shared freely, the investments she made carefully, the connections she built thoughtfully. The scandal in Seoul became history, then legend, then a case study in business, schools. New regulations were passed. Laws were changed. The weapons trafficking routes Seo-Jin had exposed were shut down, saving countless lives in conflict zones she would never visit. But that all happened far away, in a world she had left behind. In her new world, the one she had chosen instead of the one that had been chosen for her, Seo-Jin woke up every morning to the sound of chickens and the smell of coffee Kamau made too strong. She spent her days teaching and farming and laughing with Grace, who grew up to be wise and kind and fierce in all the ways that mattered. She spent her nights in Kamau's arms, talking about everything and nothing, making plans for tomorrow while being grateful for today. She learned to cook without burning things. She learned Swahili fluently, though Grace still teased her accent. She learned that happiness wasn't something you chased. It was something you built, slowly and carefully, with people who loved you. On her 70th birthday, surrounded by villagers who had become family and children she had helped educate, Seo-Jin stood to make a speech. Grace had insisted, though Seo-Jin had protested. "I'm not good at speeches anymore," she'd said. "You were never good at them," Kamau had replied with a grin. "You were just good at intimidating people into thinking you were." Now, looking at the faces gathered to celebrate her, people who knew her as Grace, the kind woman who helped their children read, not Yoon Seo-Jin, the ruthless CEO, she felt tears prick her eyes. "When I came here 45 years ago," she began in Swahili, "I was running from everything. I thought I had lost my life. But I had actually just lost my way." She looked at Kamau, whose hair was white now, but whose eyes still held the same steady kindness. And then I found a man who taught me that strength isn't about how high you climb. It's about who you lift up with you. He taught me that power isn't about control. It's about knowing when to let go. She smiled at Grace, now a woman with her own children. And I found a family I didn't know I needed. You all gave me something I never had when I was rich and powerful. You gave me a home. The party lasted until midnight, filled with music and dancing and food shared freely. Later, as Seo-Jin and Kamau walked back to their house, the same one he'd carried her to decades ago, now expanded and improved but still fundamentally the same, he took her hand. "Happy?" he asked, as he had asked 1,000 times before. "Deliriously," she replied, as she always did. And it was true. She had been a billionaire once, had commanded boardrooms and made decisions that moved markets. She had built an empire and watched it crumble twice. She had been powerful and feared and respected. But she had never been happy until the day she lost everything and found what actually mattered: love, purpose, peace, and a quiet farmer who taught her that sometimes the greatest courage is not in fighting to keep what you have, but in letting go of what's destroying you. As they reached their door, Seo-Jin paused to look up at the African stars, so much brighter than they'd ever been in Seoul, so vast and infinite and beautiful. She thought about the girl she'd been, so desperate for success, so certain that power was everything. She wished she could tell that girl that she was wrong, that she was looking in all the wrong places for things that couldn't be found there. But that girl had to learn the hard way. They all did. "Come to bed," Kamau said gently. "Tomorrow we're teaching Grace's oldest how to plant." "Tomorrow," Seo-Jin agreed, and followed him inside, closing the door on the past and choosing once again the life she had built from ashes. A life where she was no longer a queen, but she was finally, truly free. Hello, lovelies. Welcome to Afro-Korean Story Vault, the hub of great stories. Thank you for staying until the end of this emotional journey. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe to Afro-Korean Story Vault channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to choose happiness over power, love over success, and peace over everything else. Drop a comment below telling me your location, what you thought. Did you see the twists coming? What would you have done in Seo-Jin's place? Your support helps us bring more powerful stories like this to life. Until next time, remember, sometimes losing everything is the only way to find what you were meant to have all along.